skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all joyous and suffering beings everywhere. So we are, according to this calculation, we're on page 252, starting the section, A Dialogue Between Nikunja Devi and Holy Mother. And now, if that's not the right page, you know, I may get a different page reading from this Kindle than you do, but in any event, that's the section we're starting, A Dialogue Between Nikunja Devi and Holy Mother. Nikunja Devi was a close companion of Holy Mother, so on many occasions the mother shared with her stories of her life with the Master. Nikunja Devi related those stories to M, and he recorded them in his diary. Nikunja, Mother, in family life, there is only suffering and no peace. When I come to you, I get a little peace in my I get a little peace in my arid heart. It calms my soul when I address you as Mother. Holy Mother, my daughter, you have seen the Master, so you have nothing to worry about. He was very fond of you. He said to me, M's wife is simple and open-hearted. She looks at me with wonder. Let me tell you, child, happiness and misery, good and bad, both exist in this world. They come in the course of time, and people reap the results of their karma. One should make the mind strong and keep it on God. It is not good to always harp on suffering. Nikunja, Mother, when I talk to you, I feel strong and my mind becomes peaceful. That is why when I feel restless, I long to come to you. Holy Mother, child, when I was 18 or 19 years old at Dakshineshwar in 1872, I used to sleep in the Master's room. One day he asked me, who are you? I replied, I have come to serve you. One day there was no salt during lunch, so I said, there is no salt. He scolded me, saying, what is this? Never say negative words. Try to collect everything. When I was at Kamarpukur in 1867, Ramlal's father asked me to go to the Master's room to sleep at night. The Master would laugh. At that time, we shared a bed, but spent the night talking about God. He taught me how to perform household work, how to behave with people, and how to know that God is our own and the only reality. When my mother visited Kamarpukur, the Master treated her with love and care and asked her, please make some pickles for us. Now, of course, we know that that's when that kind of request is made in that cultural context, that is meant as a compliment and as a gift, so to speak. Please do something that will please. And so please make some pickles for us. When I was at Jairambati, the Master came there. He asked me to wash his feet with fuller's earth, a type of clay. It's said to have healing properties. He asked me to wash his feet with fuller's earth, a type of clay. At this, the other women commented about my loving service to husband. When my mother-in-law was grief-stricken at the demise of her son, Rameshwar, the master would spend most of his time with his mother and console her. One day he prayed to the Divine Mother, "Mother, I want to chant your name, but if my mother always grieves and cries, how is it possible to call on you? Please change my mother's mind." Notice the simplicity and the straightforwardness. He says, one day he prayed to the Divine Mother, "Mother, I want to chant your name, but if my mother always grieves and cries, how is it possible to call on you? Please change my mother's mind." So this is guidance for us. When the things of the world are distracting us and making it difficult for us to do our spiritual practices, we are to call on the Divine Mother and say, "Mother, please change this situation so that I have the opportunity to chant your name," or whatever it is your spiritual path is. Actually, this prayer was answered, and my mother-in-law remained most of the time in an ecstatic mood. Again, some guidance for us. Actually, this prayer was answered, and my mother-in-law remained most of the time in an ecstatic mood. Shambhu Malik made a cottage for me, but I was reluctant to live there. When I told the master, he said to Hriday, "Bring your wife here from Shihar." Hriday replied, "Did Shambhu Malik build that cottage for my wife?" At that time, there was a brahmachari, tantric sadhak in Dakshineshwar. I was scared of him, thinking that he might do some harm to the master, so I offered 10 rupees to him. Learning about it, the master came to the Nahabad and said, "Don't worry, I have the Divine Mother. Who can do any harm to me?" It's interesting that the mother, 10 rupees at that time was a lot of money. So mother was being very, very generous, and it really shows how deep her feeling of concern was that she would give so much money to this tantric sadhak. Learning about this, the master came to the Nahabad and said, "Don't worry, I have the Divine Mother. Who can do any harm to me?" One day the master said to Ramdatta and others, "You see, she talks about children. You all go to the Nahabad and tell her, 'Mother, I'm sorry, let's read it properly." One time he said to Ramdatta and others, "You see, she talks about children. You all go to the Nahabad and tell her, 'Mother, we are your children.'" Once we went together to Kamarpukur by boat, via Bali Deoganji, something like that, in 1877. We ate wonderful prasad, and he sang so many songs on the way. What a great mood he was in. And he said to me, "I know who you are, but I will not tell you now." Pointing to himself, he said, "Everything is inside this place." Now, notice that this is in 1877, 9 years before his passing away. At the end of his life, the master said to Narendra and some other devotees who were with him, very close disciples, pointing to his body, he said, "I see this is doing everything." So when he said, "Everything is inside this place," this is the divine being speaking And this is what's meant when we said that we are immersed in Brahman, or in the being of Krishna, as he expresses it in the Gita, though we don't know it. We are all inside that place. When my mother-in-law was dying, 13 February 1877, this is Sarada Devi speaking about Sri Ramakrishna's mother, her mother-in-law. When my mother was dying, 13 February 1877, he said, "Oh, mother, who are you that you carried me in your womb? Mother, you have looked after me in this form. Henceforth, please do the same." So he's addressing the Divine Mother and his mother. "Oh, mother, who are you that you carried me in your womb? Mother, you have looked after me in this form. Henceforth, please do the same." One day, after his mother's passing away, he told me before lunch, "Please wait. Let me go to the Panchavati and cry for my mother." So the master was one day after, so in other words, shortly after his mother's passing away, he told me before lunch, "Please wait. Let me go to the Panchavati and cry for my mother." About his monthly salary of 7 rupees, he said to the manager, "If you wish, give that money to her," meaning Holy Mother. "Otherwise, throw it in the Ganges or spend it for the guests. Do whatever you like." So the master was not concerned about money at all. For the most part, the managers of the place did give the money to mother, but sometimes not. When I was living in the Nahabat, once I spent the whole day making a beautiful garland. I requested him to put the garland on. He put the garland around his neck and then sang a song. "Is there anything left for my decoration? I put on the necklace of universal jewels. Is there anything left for my decoration? I put on the necklace of universal jewels." When I was about to leave for Jairambati, I went to see him in his room several times, which he did not like. He said to Hridoy, "Why is she coming so many times? Ask her to go." This is a mysterious side of the master. He didn't want mother to show any outward signs of her deep feeling for him. So this is how I understand these remarks. One day he said to Golap Ma about me, "What power of forbearance she has. I salute her." In other words, she was holding back so much of what she would have done and been in the master's presence because she knew that that's not what he wanted. One day he said to Golap Ma about me, "What power of forbearance she has. I salute her." One day he said, "I know who you are and who Lakshmi is, but I won't tell you. To pay my debt to you, I shall be born as a Baul." One day he said, "I know who you are and who Lakshmi is, but I won't tell you. To pay my debt to you, I shall be born as a baul, minstrel, a baul, and take you as my companion. Hearing that Lakshmi was fasting on Ekadashi day, he said, I am beyond the injunctions of the scriptures. Please eat well. He did not, it's an interesting thing, the master did not like women to fast. On more than one occasion, he made that very clear. Hearing that Lakshmi was fasting on Ekadashi day, which is traditional, he said, I am beyond the injunctions of the scriptures. Please eat well. He did not care to see women wearing a cloth without a border. He commented, it is a dress that an ogress would wear. Bah. In other words, there shouldn't be that kind of willful non-renunciation. During his sadhana, he saw Sita with diamond-cut bangles in the Panchavati. Observing the pattern on the bangle, he had a set made for me. However, he could not touch money. One day I said to him, I've not had any spiritual ecstasy. To this he remarked, what do you expect? Does ecstasy mean that that one will dance, letting the cloth fall? Who will then manage to keep the cloth in its proper place? You know, Sri Ramakrishna, he was speaking about himself. Oftentimes in his room, he would indeed, the cloth would fall from his body, and he was aware of it, but he didn't care. And so sometimes he would remark that, oh, I'll embarrass these fine babus from Calcutta with this business. She said she hadn't had any ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy. To this he remarked, what do you expect? Does ecstasy mean that one will dance, letting the cloth fall? Who will then manage to keep the cloth in its proper place? A few days before his passing away, the master said, it is better to be miserly than to be an extravagant wretch. Now that doesn't mean it's good to be miserly. It means it's better to be miserly, to be careful with money, to be careful with things, than it is to be an extravagant wretch. The master was very seldom judgmental. He just said, it's better to be careful with money than to be extravagant. So we're now, before we go on to the next section, is there any comment or question that anyone would like to make?
Yes, Brother Shankara, but I would like to ask, just out of curiosity, what was the size of the Nahabat where Holy Mother stayed?
The room was 8 by 12 and had a very low ceiling, 6 or 7 feet, something like that, the room where she stayed. And things hung from the ceiling. You know, it was meant as a storeroom. That it was a storeroom for the Nahabat, for the music tower, and so it wasn't meant to be a habitation. And so she would bump her head. She had to go very low. The door was very low. She would sometimes bump her head getting in, and sleeping on the cold stone floor, gave her rheumatism in her knees. And sometimes, because there were live fish kept in a container, a pan hung from the ceiling, sometimes they would splash water on her also and give her a chill. It was not a comfortable place at all to live. Thank you for asking, Sean. Yeah, it was tiny.
I
And
think
8 by 12 is an approximation. I mean, they didn't build things according to feet there, but that's a good approximation of how big it was.
I think they should have provided at least a decent accommodation for her, the temple.
Well, they didn't even. It was a very odd situation. Sri Ramakrishna was in a, the other priests of that temple were not congenial, most of them, to Sri Ramakrishna, and the manager was not. The manager priest. And so the fact that he had his wife there, and that she didn't stay in his room with him, was just an annoyance. And so that's why Shambhu Malik built that cottage for Mother. He built a very nice cottage for her, not spacious, but it would have been a much nicer accommodation. But it was too far away. It was too far away from the master. And so she would, there was a bamboo screen in front of the door to the Nahabat. And Mother cooked in the little space in front of the Nahabat, behind that screen. That was where she cooked. And she could peek through the screen. The bamboo screen had a few holes in it. She could peek through the screen and see the master when he was on the northwest veranda of his room with the devotees. And she said that filled her heart with a picture of bliss. Those were her very words. Just seeing him in that way filled her heart with a picture of bliss. So it was her choice to stay at the Nahabat and be close to the master that way, rather than live in that cottage. She tried living in the cottage for some time, and the master would come and visit her there during the daytime. But as I say, it was too far away, and so she preferred to, even though it was uncomfortable and impractical, she preferred to be closer.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Haima.
I have a question. It seems like Ramakrishna Swami and Sarada Devi, Mata, they both seem to have a divine relationship rather than a practical husband and wife relationship. He always looked at her as a Lakshmi. Is that right? I'm understanding from the readings.
No, he didn't. He didn't look at her as Lakshmi. He looked at her as Saraswati. And that's what he said, that she was an incarnation of Saraswati.
Incarnation of Saraswati.
And that, if you look at what's happened since her advent in the world,
Yes.
that are the attributes of Saraswati, you will see that her advent was as Saraswati, the divine mother as Saraswati. If you look at the world in the 1860s when she was born,
yes,
and the 1960s, just a century later, my God, the difference. And most of it
yes,
is attributable to the characteristics of Saraswati. Now, both of them, Mother and the Master, said they were not two beings. They were really one being that appeared in two forms so that they could perform two roles.
yes.
Mother had the harder task in the sense of how long she had to serve and be, have all these. She had, by some count, she had over 2,000 disciples. The master only had about 100. Of course, he practiced this intense renunciation and had this very intense sadhana over 12 years. So there's no way, as it says in the Chandi of the Divine Mother, thou art verily that which cannot be uttered specifically. And this is true of those two.
Yes.
They cannot be explained. Even Vivekananda said, he said to the other direct disciples, you understand him hardly at all, but even I don't understand him. And he said that also of Mother, that she was beyond understanding and beyond our ability to really meaningfully worship. We do worship her, of course, but even he felt that his worship was inadequate.
That's beautiful.
So thank you, Haima.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Anything else from anyone?
Shankaraji,
Yes, Balakrishna.
is Lakshmi, is he referring to the niece?
Yes.
Okay.
But she also was a divine
The
incarnation.
Nahabat for a while, yes.
She also was
for a while.
a partial incarnation of divinity.
I think Brother Shankara.
So,
Yes, Neera?
Yes, that was the reason that Thakur worshipped Mother, because he performed the Shodashi Puja for her and treated her as a divine mother.
Yes, well, what he did was that was their formal union. That was when that was the formality showing their union. And he said he had given all of his spiritual treasures to her at that Shodashi Puja. But it was an outward demonstration of who he knew her to be, and that was their true marriage, so to speak. Thank you, Neera.
Thank you.
Okay, it's just about 8:30. We've got lots of time left. So M's stories of Holy Mother. That's the next section. M's stories of Holy Mother. On different occasions, M recounted stories about Holy Mother to the devotees. These stories were recorded by Swami Nityatmananda. They were recorded by Swami Nityatmananda and are excerpted here. In other words, it isn't all of them. It's just the ones that Swami Chetanananda regarded as most exemplary for us. When the master passed away, Holy Mother said, his gross body is gone, but his spiritual body exists eternally. Now, if that is not a direct, that is meant to be a direct message of comfort to us. His gross body is gone, but his spiritual body exists eternally. And she also remarked at one point that we are extremely fortunate to have these pictures of a divine incarnation and the words recorded by M and others, but especially by M. Once Hridoy teased Holy Mother saying, Aunt, if you call Uncle Father, I shall give you 5 seers of sandesh. That would have been a lot of that sandesh candy. Aunt, If you call uncle father, I shall give you 5 seers of Sandesh. Holy Mother replied, you will not have to give me Sandesh. I tell you on my own that he is my father, mother, guru, friend, and husband. He is everything to me. And I'll repeat again this business about what Mother said. She said, even recalling him after he was gone, when she was in Jairambati, even recalling him when talking to the devotees, she said it filled her heart with a picture of bliss, P-I-T-C-H-E-R, a picture of bliss. So she said to Fridor, you don't have to give me any Sandesh. I tell you on my own that he is my father, mother, guru, friend, and husband. He is everything to me. She found the master in every type of relationship. What faith she had. Sometimes the master talked to Holy Mother in front of the Nahabat. Golap Ma, Yogin Ma, and Gauri Ma occasionally stayed with her. They all stayed in that tiny room together. Some of them would also sleep out on the porch, that place where Mother cooked. But it was amazing with the austerities they were willing to endure. Brinda, who was the maidservant woman, so I'll start that again. Golap Ma, Yogin Ma, and Gauri Ma occasionally stayed with her. Brinda helped her do the household work. The master said to Holy Mother, this mud hut of Kamarpukur is yours. Live on spinach and rice and chant God and live on spinach and rice and chant God's name the entire day. He gave Holy Mother his cottage in Kamarpukur and 400 rupees. Mathur, this is Mathur Babu. Mathur, if you remember, Mathur was the son-in-law of the Rani Rasmani, the rich woman. She was wealthy and very influential and very combative with the British. She particularly would defend her people of her fisher folk caste. So Mathur was her son-in-law, and she entrusted him with everything. Mathur gave some jewelry to the master when he was practicing sadhana as a confidant of Radha. If you remember, the master dressed as a woman and mixed with the women of the Rani Rasmanis and Mathur's household. He was apparently indistinguishable from a woman. Mathur gave some jewelry to the master when he was practicing sadhana as a confidant of Radha. That jewelry was sold for 400 rupees, and the money was invested in Balaram's estate. It earned an annual interest of 30 rupees, that's pretty generous. The master sometimes asked thus, well, are 2 rupees a month enough for a Brahmin widow? What do you think? No. The answer was no. Nonetheless, he was oblivious of day and night, even to his wearing cloth. So this is just a playful illustration of the master's impracticality. He was simple-hearted. He was simple in every way, and he was not practical. The master sometimes asked us, well, are 2 rupees a month enough for a Brahmin widow? What do you think? Nonetheless, he was oblivious of day and night, even to his wearing cloth. He was so concerned about Holy Mother He was so concerned about Holy Mother. He set the examples so that others would follow. Now, of course, we know that in the beginning they did not follow. They after the master left the body and the Baranagore monastery was started, and all the young men that were going to become the sannyasins of the Ramakrishna order were there. And then when they began to go on their learning journeys, they weren't pilgrimages exactly. They were just wanderings where they went where the divine took them and learned what the divine was teaching them. But none of them were thinking about Holy Mother. And so we read about that. We heard about that early in the book. One day, Holy Mother was meditating and someone loudly called to her. Her meditation broke and she cried out. When he heard this, the master rushed to the Nahabat, and gradually Holy Mother became calm. So she was so deep in meditation that she was really distraught when she returned to this cage of bone and flesh. When he heard this, the master rushed to the Nahabat, and gradually Holy Mother became calm. The master said to others, during meditation, one should neither call nor make any noise near that person. It's instruction to us. During meditation, one should neither call out nor make any noise near that person. The master arranged for Holy Mother to sleep on the small cot in his room for 8 months in Dakshineshwar. Why? To teach devotees. They slept close to one another, but had no physical relationship. His action was meant to bring strength and encouragement to the householder devotees so that they could live like brother and sister. Of course, that's the instruction of the scriptures and the instructions of the great souls, that a married couple, after having 2 children, at most 2 children, should live as brother and sister. Now, of course, we know that that's the exception rather than the rule, but the master was setting an example for others. He demonstrated how to lead a married life. The master suffered in Dakshineshwar after Mathur's passing away. There was no one to look after him, and Mathur was very attentive during his time. Though he didn't understand the master, tried to modify his behavior in various ways, some of them not particularly savory. Mathur and some others actually hired some prostitutes to try to bring the master's mind to a more worldly frame of reference. All he did is call out Mother, Mother, and addressing them as Mother. Call out Mother, Mother, and go into Samadhi. You can imagine their consternation. The master suffered in Dakshineshwar after Mathur's passing away. There was no one to look after him. He would eat cold, spicy food at 10 p.m. His mat was torn, and his pillowcase and bedsheet were dirty, but his mind was on God. Gradually, his health broke down. When Hridoy left, he wrote to Holy Mother, "There is no one to look after me here." When Hridoy left, the master wrote to Holy Mother, "There is no one to look after me here. I shall appreciate it if you come here." Holy Mother returned to Dakshineshwar and began to cook for him. Now, this spicy food that he was eating at 10 p.m. was the prasad from the food that was offered to Kali. It wasn't that he was cooking or someone was cooking for him. this spicy food. And as I said, the master was not practical. He did not wash his own clothes and so on and so forth. So if people didn't look after him, if there wasn't someone to look after him. And Hridoy, of course, the reason Hridoy left was that he committed an offense. And so the temple management said, you can't stay here anymore. So the master asked Holy Mother to come back and take care of him, and she did. Once Holy Mother said to a woman devotee, I have seen many holy people, but none can be compared with the master. The woman devotee replied, what do you say, Mother? Other holy men come to be liberated, and the master came to liberate others. Other holy men come to be liberated, that is, they attain liberation, and the master came to liberate others. Holy Mother said with a smile, you are right. Holy Mother said this to test that devotee. So let's go back and see what she said to her. Once Holy Mother said to a woman devotee, I have seen many holy people, but none can be compared with the master. The woman devotee replied, what do you say, Mother? Other holy men come to be liberated, and the master came to liberate others. Holy Mother said with a smile, you are right. Holy Mother said this to test that devotee. Those who search for genuine monks get confused. They do not see their own imperfections. Those who search for genuine monks get confused. They do not see their own imperfections. The master said both good and bad qualities exist in human beings. Both good and bad qualities exist in human beings. Only God, the avatar, is free from blemishes. Holy Mother said, even in the moon there is a stain, but there is no stain in the Ramakrishna moon. Sometimes, now remember this is M speaking, sometimes we sent some food and other things to Holy Mother in Udbodhan. This is after the place that had been built for her in Calcutta by Swami Chetanananda. He built the two-story building, and he had his office and the office of the Udbodhan magazine on the lower floor, and Mother had the upper floor. So sometimes we would send some food and other things to Holy Mother in Udbodhan through our servant. She would feed the master's special prasad to our servant with great care. Now, you know that isn't the way most people treat servants. So she would take that food, offer it to the master, food that M had sent through the servant. She would offer it to the master, and then she would feed the master's special prasad to our servant with great care. She did not discriminate like other people who make one kind of food for themselves and another kind for the servants. All were equal to her. Now, I can't remember if we read this yet in the book or not, but one time in Jairambati, some dacoits, the common translation is thugs, people who made their living by stealing, even killing. Some dacoits came. They were Holy Mother's disciples. They were her devotees. They came to see her in Jairambati. And of course, they were fearsome looking. And everyone ran away, and they all said to Mother, "Mother, how can you?" Of course, she fed them. She fed them just as she did all the other people who came. She made a place for them. She sat them down. She made food for them. She served them the food herself. And when they were finished, she cleared away the leaf plates herself. And of course, the pious people around her said, "Mother, what are you doing? How can you possibly involve yourself with these people?" And she said, "I am the mother of the wicked as well as the good." So of course, she did not discriminate. As it says in the evening prayer, we are equal before thy sight. All are equal before the Lord's sight. This is very instructive to us when we think about people that we regard, that we judge as evil. And of course, it's absolutely clear in the Chandi, in the Devi Mahatmya. Don't you reduce to ashes all asuras. Asuras are demonic people. Don't you reduce to ashes all asuras by mere sight, but you direct your weapons against them, so that even the inimical ones, purified by the missiles, may attain the higher worlds. Such is your most kindly intention toward them. Now, does that mean we countenance evil? No, that's not it. But the Christians have this little saying: hate the sin, love the sinner. Hate the sin, love the sinner. That's a familiar phrase in Protestant churches. So Holy Mother did not discriminate like other people who make one kind of food for themselves and another kind for the servants. All were equal to her. Once it was proposed that a cow be brought from Belur Mat to Udbodhan so that Holy Mother could have fresh milk. But she immediately protested, "No, no, those cows are freely grazing in the holy atmosphere of the monastery compound where they can see the Ganges. Here the cow would be tied with a rope and kept in a room. I couldn't bear it. I couldn't drink that milk." I'm going to read that again. Someone proposed that a cow be brought from Belur Mat to Udbodhan so that Holy Mother could have fresh milk. But she immediately protested, "No, no, those cows are freely grazing in the holy atmosphere of the monastery compound where they can see the Ganges. Here the cow would be tied with a rope and kept in a room. I couldn't bear it. I couldn't drink that milk." Holy Mother said to a young man, "My son, never marry. If you are not married, you will be able to sleep peacefully at night. My child, never enter this burning fireplace." After she initiated a young man into brahmacharya, she said, "My child, now you will be able to sleep happily." Ah, how Mother tied the devotees with her love and affection. Once at Jairambati, 5 male devotees were to get initiation from Holy Mother. One of them belonged to a low caste. He was asked by the others to sit outside because his presence might pollute the shrine. He began to cry. When Holy Mother entered the shrine, she found 4 men and inquired about the other person. They replied, "He belongs to the washerman's caste. He is outside." She rushed to that devotee and escorted him into the shrine. He was reluctant to enter, but Holy Mother took him inside and initiated him with the others. So we have just a few minutes left. Time for some questions or comments if you have them. Please do. We've read a lot of really, really important and instructive stuff. Please, if there's anything you'd like to ask or comment, please do.
But when Mathur Babu passed away, wasn't that their devotee at the time with Ramakrishna or no?
I'm sorry, would you say it again, Balakrishna? I missed a word or two.
When Mathur Babu passed away, were there any devotees that followers of Ramakrishna or no? They did not come yet at that time.
Well, there were people who looked to him for instruction, yes, but it wasn't the group of people that became close to him later. No, and it was Balaram who took up the master's care for his expenses. He was the next one that took care of him. Ram also, but he came later. It was Balaram. Balaram was known through the family, you know. But when Mathur died, there was no one to protect the master from the priests of the temple. And as I said, they did not understand who he was. They weren't congenial to him. For example, we know that when the master got the throat cancer and he moved away from Dakshineshwar to Shambhukur, that was the first place he went. And it didn't work out. It was very inconvenient for a number of reasons. And so a request was made to the temple authorities for Sri Ramakrishna to come back to Dakshineshwar. And they said no. That's why he ended up moving to Kashipur. So that was it was. You know, the master was always surrounded by people. Like I said, the Holy Mother would peep through the bamboo screen when he was sitting with his people that he was talking to on the northwest veranda of his room. But it was only in the last 4 or 5 years of his life, it was after 1880, that Sri Ramakrishna's near and dear began to really gather. And it was really in the last 4 years, from 1882 to 1886, that it became so intense. Thank you, Balakrishna. That was a very good question. Anything else?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Sham.
who owns the Dakshineshwar temple now?
Well, it's not in the orders, but I don't know the answer to that. I suspect it's still in the family that built it, in the ownership of the family that built it. Um, when I went there in 1999, of course, now because of Sri Ramakrishna's presence there, the Dakshineshwar temple has become very famous and a place of pilgrimage. So they honor Sri Ramakrishna very much there now. But there was a time after his passing away that they didn't even want to hear his name. It was so I suspect, Sham, that it's still in the. There was a trust created. I don't remember the details just now, but there was a trust created, and it was so that it wouldn't be in the ownership, direct ownership of a person of the fisher person caste. That would make it off limits to a lot of people, especially Brahmins. So some sort of arrangement was made, and it was Sri Ramakrishna's older brother that advised the Rani Rasmani on how to create this trust. So yeah, it was. I suspect that the trust still exists. Sarada. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Actually, if I remember correctly, the people who inherited this one, they ended up going to the court. I don't know whether it is still in the court or it was settled.
Okay. You mean the family? They quarreled with one
yes.
another in court?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I can imagine they did. It became very valuable property because of Sri Ramakrishna's presence there. Yes. Otherwise, it would have just been another temple on the banks of the Ganges. You know, there wouldn't have been anything exceptional about it at all. There are many.
But when we visited the temple, there was a strikingly difference between the cleanliness of the Belur Mutt and the temple. You know, there's so much.
Oh yes.
It's a terrible difference.
Yes. Yes. Oh well, this is cultural. You know, this is Belur Mutt is exceptional, and this is why it's regarded as exceptional even by the Indian government. The Ramakrishna order is held in very high esteem because they are, as you said, very fastidious, both in cleanliness and in their management of money. There's a lot of underhandedness about money among people in monasteries and other religious organizations, according to what I've heard. And it is scrupulously avoided in the Ramakrishna order. If you show any tendency toward that way of being at all, you will be sidelined from having anything whatsoever to do with money. And if you still show tendencies toward being less than scrupulous and honest, you will be asked to leave the order. They just won't tolerate it. As a result, the Indian government gives the Ramakrishna order many, many millions of rupees to distribute for famine relief and disaster relief, because they're so very practiced at it and so careful with every ana. So yeah, there's a big difference between the way the Ramakrishna order is run and other places. But you know, Sarada Mutt, the women's order of nuns, is very near Dakshineshwar. And I would suspect, you know, sometime in the next couple of 100 years, that the that somehow or another Dakshineshwar will come under the management of Sarada Mat. That's just a guess on my part.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you for your comments, Sean. Well, it's 9:01. Anything? We have time for anything else? Anything?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, I am.
I don't know if I tuned out or misheard. Was there an instruction about marriage or not to get married? Was that to a monastic disciple from Holy Mother?
No. This was. She gave that instruction to a young man who was taking brahmacharya. That's true. But she also said that to others, both men and women. She would tell them, now this is not a blanket instruction. This is not meant to say no one should get married, not at all. But she did compare marriage to a fireplace. It is two things. If you are to be married, follow the scriptural injunctions of having a couple of children and then live together as brother and sister. And then marriage changes its character. You become a kind of sannyasin and sannyasini, and practice mental renunciation. This is the instruction of Thakur and Holy Mother for householders to practice mental renunciation. But, here sits a man who was married for 47 years. Who knows whether I would be married still if my wife, I think I probably would be if my wife hadn't left the body. She left the body at age 65. And so Swami Swahananda took that opportunity to make a dramatic change in my life. I mean, I had been very close to the center there, the Hollywood Center, for decades. But he changed the character of my life in June of 2010 by giving me brahmacharya vows, sending me here. So, but the last years of our life together, just how many years I couldn't exactly say, but Marjorie and I lived together as brother and sister. It was over 10 years, over 10 years. And she was very, very devoted to the mother, but in the Catholic way. She was a cradle Catholic and left the body in the company of mother. That's when my son saw it. Thank you, Swayam.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Anything else from anyone?
What is a cradle Catholic?
Born a Catholic, a Catholic in the cradle.
Oh, okay, I see.
A cradle
You.
Catholic. You don't convert to Catholicism, or you were born that way, and she was indeed. Cradle Catholic.
It's a nice expression because we are all cradle Hindus, whatever.
Yes, exactly. Except for those of us who aren't. So with that, we'll close. Om Hari Om. Om Sahana. Sahana Bhavatu. No, not that. Om Asatoma Satgamaya. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amrutangamaya. Abir. O dearly beloved Lord, lead us from thy manifest truth to thy unmanifest and absolute truth. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Om. Amen. Om. So good to be with you again. Tomorrow evening, of course, we'll have our Gita class. And on Saturday, the class at 11 a.m. on Realizing God. And I'm happy to report that for those of you who are interested, we are continuing the Monday evening readings and discussion from the book Love Poems from God. It's not a class that's led as this class is. It's just a peer-led reading and discussion group. Very sweet, reading from and discussing the poems, this testimony of the saints, 12 saints that is in that book, Love Poems from God. And so, and then of course, this coming Sunday, there will be a talk via Zoom, of course, called A Little Improvement. And you can read about that talk in this week's e-news, which will come out on Thursday. So anything else from anyone before we wind up? All right, good night to everyone. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. Holy
Thank you.
Mother's
Thank you,
loving
Brother
and
Shankara.
protective embrace.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, all. Oh, good to hear from you, Liam.
Night.
Good night, Catherine.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Night, Brother Shankara.